Our next storyteller is a 5-time Moth Story Slam winner. He's performed in storytelling shows across the United States and Canada, and his stories have been featured on iHeartRadio, CBS Radio Storytellers, KCRW's Unfictional, and the Risk podcast. Next month, he'll be telling a story at Our Lips Are Unsealed, which is another great show all about rock and roll. Stories from the music business on January 20th at Tom Bergen's. Please welcome the lovely Sam Feirstein.
Feirstein.
Why do I always do that? Feirstein, Feirstein.
It's anti-Semitism. So it was Christmas 2000 and I don't know, whatever, it was years ago. And I was driving down this just pitch black highway somewhere in Orange County. And all I can think is, it's like, how did I get here? Right? Like, how am I here? And I'm in Orange County, right? That was a party, that was easy. It was that earlier that year I had turned 40, but I didn't turn just 40, I was 40 never married, which had never been the plan, right? The plan had always been, I was convinced since I was a little kid that I was gonna like meet her, the one, and you know, happily ever whatever, but it never happened. And look, don't get me wrong, my life was good, my life was really good. In fact, my holidays were great, right? The night before Christmas Eve, I'd been at this huge party, it was packed with people and food, and there was live music, and I just spent the day at the Laker game, and we kicked the shit out of Boston, so it was like extra good. And then, you know, and in a couple days, I was gonna be flying to Tahoe to go snowboarding for New Year's. I mean, my life was good, my life was really good. It just always felt like there should be something more. And that's what was eating away at me as I was coming around this curve, and in the middle of the road was just like glowing pot of light. It was a toll booth. I wasn't expecting it, and there was just one stall open, and I pulled up, and there was this woman there working all alone. And I was so surprised because she just greeted me with the warmest Merry Christmas that I'd ever heard in my life. Like, it was so sincere and inviting. Like, I actually wished her like Merry Christmas, like sincerely, maybe for the first time in my life. And, you know, we got to talking, we had a little bit of chit chat or whatever, and I saw that she was reading a book. And I go, oh, hey, so what are you reading? And, you know, and I'm expecting like, oh, you know, 50 Shades of Eat, Pray, Twilight. And it's like what everybody's reading always and everywhere. But she says, oh, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's called Bluebeard, and it's by this writer, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, Kurt Vonnegut? I'm like, you're kidding. And she goes, you know the book? I'm like, the autobiography of Rabo Karabekian, the most reviled artist of his time? No, like that went over like a sack of rocks, because she's looking at me like, who are you, madman, arriving out of nowhere to quote this like insane book to me, right? And I'm just staring at her. I'm just as confused because clearly she has no idea who Kurt Vonnegut is. But that doesn't matter, I mean, because the thing is, she didn't know who Kurt Vonnegut was, and she was reading that book, Bluebeard, right? It wasn't Cat's Cradle or Breakfast of Champions, right? Like one of those books that's just everywhere. And I'm looking at her and I go, can I ask you, is it okay, can I ask you, why are you reading that? And she looked at me and she just kind of considered, and I could see the hesitation. But she took a breath and said, "My fiance just died. And somebody suggested I read it. They thought it would help." And I could see it. I could see it in her, like she was ashen and just shattered. And we started to talk. Her name was Meredith. We were around the same age. I think she was a couple years younger than me. And she told me, he got the flu. Well, we thought it was the flu. He kept getting worse. It was just getting worse. And we went to the emergency room and they admitted him to the hospital and he died 5 days later. That was 6 days ago. What do you say to that? What? There's nothing you can say that can make any of this okay. Right? And I'm just looking at her because it's just, she's supposed to be at home. Right? Like she had won, right? She had won. She had met her one, her love, and she was supposed to be at home celebrating Christmas with him, like right then. Not sitting in the middle of this dark road in a horrible reality. And we're looking at each other and she says, "You know this book?" And I told her, I said, "Yeah, actually I'm a really big fan of the writer." So she says, "Do you know why they would tell me I should read it?" And I'm like, "No." I didn't say it, but God, no. Like what insane who's the madman who told her read Kurt Vonnegut, right? I'm like, he is not on Death and Dying. He is not the 7 stages of grief. He's not exactly what you would call like the sunniest, most uplifting guy out there, right? Which is exactly why I loved him. You know, I discovered Kurt Vonnegut when I was 16 years old, and I picked up a copy of Slaughterhouse-Five. And I'd been reading everybody at that point. I'd been through Hemingway, and I'd been through Salinger and Faulkner and whatever, and it was just, the thing was like, Vonnegut was different. He got it. He knew how brutal and hateful and violent and unrelenting life was. He knew. And I would just sit there all night, locked in my bathroom, burning through cigarettes, reading Vonnegut. And Bluebeard was the first new book he published after I discovered him. And I'd read it twice. But at that point, it had been like 15 years. And just fragments were coming to me, bits and pieces, because she's looking at me, like hoping, waiting for something. And I'm just thinking, it's like, and the pieces that are coming to me, it's like Jackson Pollock's car wrapped around a tree. Right? The Armenian genocide. These are not funny things, but it was like World War II, right? Like just standard issue Vonnegut. Except for the ending. Rabo Karabekian, the protagonist, the artist, like Bluebeard, had a secret locked away. And it's talked about and discussed throughout the book, and he'll never give up the secret until the end. And I'm looking at Meredith, and she's looking at me, and I swear to God, like, I couldn't believe it, because there was a flicker of something. Like, I won't call it hope, but you could see it in her. She was still, in spite of everything, like, open to the idea of it. And I told her, I said, it's those last 30 pages, those final chapters, the way it rolls out. You never see it coming. But it's perfect. It's my favorite ending to any of his books. And we just sat there, and she considered it, and she nodded, and I told her, I said, I'm so sorry, I wish there was something more I could have done for you. And she said, no, you need to know. You made me feel better. And we had another moment or two together and wished each other Merry Christmas, and I left. I don't know what happened to Meredith, and I can't imagine how slowly time must have passed for her. And I couldn't stop thinking about her. And when I got home, I pulled Bluebeard off of my shelf, and I had every intention of reading it again. But I never got past the quote that opens the book. It's from Mark Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut's son. And Kurt had asked his son one day, he said, "What is the meaning to life?" Mark is a Harvard-educated doctor who also suffers from bipolar disorder, and he's been hospitalized for it many times, and he's written beautifully about it. And he wrote his father a letter, and in it he said, "I'm a person who has suffered. I've lived through life's highest highs and suffered life's lowest lows, and what I've come to understand about life, the meaning to life is," and this is the quote that opens the book, "We are here to help each other get through this thing, whatever it is."
Sam Feirstein.